Alright, settle down. Chains don't jingle themselves, you know. You know, I want story time, yeah? So this is where Steve left off, see? After all the other mess, this part is when Steve went back to Rattenvale. Used to be called Moustopia. You know, cute little name, built by mice with tiny paws and big dreams. Mice City, clean and tidy. Food stacked higher than Steve's ambitions. Then the rats came, and now everyone calls it Rattenvale. Steve liked Moustopia better. Sounds less like something you scrape off your boot. So Steve hears rumor. Somewhere past the ruined Rattenvale is the cathedral. There's a blacksmith. Not just any hammer swinger. A Kenku, named Longshot. Where it is, Longshot can deal with curses, deal with bad steel, maybe even deal with a certain blood sword Steve's been dragging around like bad decision with a handle. You see, by this point, Steve not thinks sword is cool toy anymore. Steve see it for what it is. Curse. Thing that shouldn't be in the world. Too strong, too hungry, too eager to make things stop staying dead. Well, more like make things perma-dead. So Steve decides, Steve going back to Rattenvale. Steve find this long shot, Steve getting rid of sword. Steve thought that was going to be hardest part. Oh, how Steve was wrong. So Steve walked into Rattenvale from the old road. No banners, no guards, just wind. And the smell of moldy bread and old fur. Building's still there. Kinda. Mice knew how to build. Stone walls, nice arches, cute little balconies, squeaking mice used to lean on. But rats never cared about that. When Scabrous and his rats took over, they didn't turn into home. They turned into a lair. Food everywhere once, grain piled in towers, cheese wheels lined up like golden moons, wine barrels stacked to the ceiling. Rats ate it all. Didn't grow more, didn't store more proper. Just devoured. Now, Moustopia is just the bones of a city. Chewed beams, collapsed roofs, cellars full of rot, streets stained with old spills. Some from wine, some from things that screamed. And the rats? Well, most of them are hollowed now. Steve sees them when Steve slips through alleys. Eyes empty, bodies just going through motions. One rat sitting at a stall counting invisible coins. Another gnawing on air where loaf used to be. Couple of them fighting over no scraps at all. Just claws swiping at ghosts. Steve waved at one. Hey, remember Steve? Best merchant you ever overpaid? Nothing. No answer. Just dead routine. Greed died too in Rattenvale. Oh, what's left is reflexes. Now, this is where things get weird. Even by rat standards. Rattenvale used to run on 3 idiots at the top. King Scabrous, his brothers, Vermix, and Playtail. Big boss, gate boss, wine boss. Vermix watched the first gate. Big rat, big mouth, small brain. Armor, halberd, endless shouting. You couldn't walk in or out without Vermix yelling about tolls or loyalty or how important Vermix was to the king. Steve always brought him drinks, so Vermix shouted at other people instead. So Steve head toward first gate, expecting some old noise. Even after all these years, Steve expects Vermix to be there. Drunk, but yelling. Gates wide open. No guards. Chains snapped. Not undone. Like something big tore them. Vermex's old armor? On the ground. Empty. Bit of rust, bit of dried something that is definitely not wine. No Vermix. Steve doesn't like that. Vermix was stupid. But Vermix was a fixed point. Like smell of rat or weight of coin. Vermix not being there is wrong. So, Steve goes down to the sewers, towards the wine reserves. Heh. Used to be Plague Tale's domain. Other brother. Mean drunk. Smart, but the kind of smart that makes everyone nervous. He kept the wine flowing, and the rumors flowing faster. When Steve needed information, Steve brought bottle. Plague Tale opened his mouth, everything spilled out. Secret plans, names, all between sips. Now, the cellars are a wreck. Barrels busted open, wine long since turned slime. Dripping down stone into black puddles. Mold on everything. Old corks floating like dead mice. No guards. No Plague Tale leaning on a barrel, cursing at someone. Just silence and the stink. So gate boss gone, wine boss gone. Only one rat Steve can think of who would take everything for himself. King. Steve knows King Scabrous didn't like to share. Never did. But even for him, this is a lot. Steve heads for the throne hall. Used to be a cathedral for mice, maybe. Or some official hall. Rats dragged in junk. Built a throne out of crates and bones. Hung stolen banners everywhere. You know, classic rat decor. This time, hall is pretty quiet. Too quiet. Echo feels thick. Only sound is chewing. Heavy, wet chewing. Slow like something big enjoying every bite. Steve keeps the shadows. Old habit. Duck behind broken pillar. Peek out. And there's Scabrous. Bigger than Steve remembers. Bloated. Body not shaped right. Fur stitched over lumps that moved on their own. Skin bulging in weird places. Like something under it wanted out. And on his shoulders, blended into his back and neck, Vermix. Plague Tale. What's left of them anyways. Face pushed into King's flesh. One eye here, one jaw there. Vermix's mouth open and closing, but words just like gargling noises. Plague Tale's teeth chatter like he's cold. Eyes rolling, trying maybe to look anywhere but at King's plate. Scabrous, well, he grafted him onto himself. For more power, more meat, more presence. Steve don't know. Instead of brothers at his side, now they're ornaments on his body. Some families wear matching cloaks. King Scabrous wears matching siblings. Steve felt sick. Tail shaking, claws digging into stone. Those two were never Steve's friends. Not really. But they were there. Steady, drinking buddies, information sources. Rats who laughed loudly and complained and made messes. Seeing them like that, It's proof. In Rattenvale, even loyalty gets eaten. Scabrous kept chewing. On what? Steve doesn't look too hard. King's eyes gleam, but not with thoughts. Just hunger. Hunger for food, power, attention. Doesn't matter. Same bottomless pit. For one heartbeat, Steve's paw slides towards Bloodsword's hilt. A little voice in the head says, "Now cut him down! End it! Be hero!" The sword whispers back. Steve feels it. That eager, hungry thrill. Sword doesn't want justice. Sword wants more dead. Steve lets go of hilt. Steve not hero. Steve not stupid. Steve knows that hall full of hollowed. Shadows moving on walls, eyes watching. Steve jump in, Steve just becomes dessert. So Steve backs away. Slow, quiet, leaving King to chew on his own mistakes. So that's the royal family reunion. Very touching, no? After that, Steve heads past city to cathedral. Place mice build on the edge, just before the land starts thinking about becoming forest. Big spires, old bells, cracked now. Windows busted, but inside, something's still working. Forge fire flickering through the old archway. Steve walks in, stone blackened from smoke, old symbols chipped away. At the far end, where altar used to be, there's the forge. Anvil, tools, scrap metal, and a tall, ragged-feathered Kenku in front of it. Longshot. Hammer in hand. Every time it hits metal, sounds come out wrong. Not just clang, but echoes of voices. Like each strike knocks loose a piece of conversation someone had long ago. Creepy. Steve approves. Steve clears throat. Chains were on Steve's back then, so steps sounded a little less, well, dramatic. "Hey, bird," Steve says. "Steve got a curse needs breaking." Kenku turns head. Slow, eyes like glass, like mirrors. Then beak opens. And instead of normal speech, Steve gets... "Curse, sword, blood. Remove. Remove. Why?" Steve doesn't flinch. Steve's a professor, after all. Steve has talked to worse. Okay, Steve lies. First, stand up a little. Steve explains a nice dramatic story for him. Of course. Gotta keep reputation. How Steve found Bloodsword, how it kills too well, how it whispers, how it makes death too permanent, too deep. How Steve watched what it did to enemies, to people Steve actually cared about. Steve skips certain details. Listeners look too young for that kind of tragedy. But Longshot here is enough. Sword is cursed. Sword is wrong. Sword needs to be removed from world. Steve says, "So, you smash it, see? Break it, melt it, whatever blacksmiths do. Steve don't care, as long as sword is gone." Longshot listens, head tilted, feathers twitching, now and then like static. The bird taps hammer on the anvil once. "Destroy." "Destroy?" "No destroy. Sword. Old function. Design."
Lord Death. Dead. No death. No final end. Something must cut line. Something must stay. No more.
Steve takes a second to untangle that mess of voices. Wait, Steve says. So you're saying Sword can't be destroyed because world needs something to finish the job?
Yes. Once Lord Death carried the burden. Now gone. So weight falls on other things. Sword is knife and fabric of life. Ugly. Wrong. Necessary.
Longshot explains in his channel flipping ways that when Lord Death died, the world didn't just shrug and stop ending things. No. Rules twisted, got ugly. Some things now carry pieces of Death's work. This sword? One of those things. It doesn't just kill bodies, it pins souls. Cut so deep that even in a world without proper death, somehow that thing stay dead. Steve hates that. Hates that it has a place in the story of everything. Because need it or not, that sword is tragedy condensed. Steve asks, so no smashing? No melting? No oops, Steve dropped in volcano option? Longshot shakes head.
Break form. Curse remains. Shards would crawl. Peace would hunt. Worse.
So that's it. No clean erasing. No pretending it never existed. World won't allow it. Balance demands something ugly to fill Death's grave. But Steve isn't done. If Sword can't be destroyed, maybe it can be buried. Not just in dirt. Not just in vault. Buried in something alive enough to choke it. That's when Steve got idea. Alright, Bird, Steve says. If Sword's gotta exist, fine. But it don't gotta be in paws of idiots, see? It don't gotta be easy to find. Steve thinks of a place not too far beyond Cathedral. The living forest. Not just trees. Not just roots. Forest that moves when still. That eats memories. That plays with souls. Where life is so thick it turned into something else entirely. If anything can swallow a curse and put 50 more curses on top of it, it's that place. Steve decides. Steve takes Sword there. Deep in. Fine place even greedy hands don't reach. Let force wrap around it. Grow over it. Sing to it until even screams sound like wind. Doesn't fix everything. Sword still exists. Still doing its ugly little job on a level Steve can't see. But at least then, it's not being waved around like cheap toy. Longshot just nods. Hits Anvil once more.
Seal, hide, bury. If cannot erase, at least make hard.
So Steve leaves Cathedral with a plan. One rat, one cursed sword, one horrible forest waiting at edge of world. And that is where this chapter ends, amigos. Steve walked out of dead city called Rattenvale, past bones of Moustopia, past King wearing his brothers like trophies, heading toward a forest that eats stories like this for breakfast. You want to know what happened next? How Steve walked into living forest? How deal get made? How sword gets sealed? And maybe someone should get these chains off Steve, eh? Hard to gesture dramatically in the middle of a story with no circulation and tail. Steve keep talking either way, but rescue package usually comes with better endings.